Timothy Taylor is our guest. He's a stellar writer. He's an award-winning writer. His Stanley Park book was nominated for the Giller Prize. This new one, I don't know any nominations yet.
You know, early days.
It's young.
It's very young. It's 2 weeks old, Fanny.
Mm-hmm. Is that all?
It's a baby.
Oh, it is a baby. What does that feel like when it's done and you see it on the bookshelf? In the store.
It's really satisfying. It's a little different than it was in years gone by because now there is a certain expectation that the author be very engaged with social media and what have you. So you can't do that. My baby is born, it's out in the world,
right.
And my work is done here. Unfortunately, the work is not done.
And can you call up the bookstore owner and say, hello, the Blue Light Project is on the back shelf in the back of the store. Would you mind putting it on front display? Or who does that for you?
Yeah, I don't do that. I just go into the stores and sign the books if I have the opportunity.
And as you know, when you're an unknown author and you go to the store and there's a big book signing, sometimes nobody shows up.
It's true. It's true. I've done some of those.
Have you? The loneliest writer in town.
Well, I signed books when one of my very first events was a reading with Michael Ondaatje. Oh. So we sat at a table next to one another, and then the line formed to get books. So this
you went into a venue with Ondaatje?
Yeah, and they put the lines next to each other so as to heighten the comparison between them. Yes.
And because Canadians are traditionally polite.
Well, actually what would happen is people would get to about 20 deep in his line, and then they'd look at me and they'd go, oh, they feel so sorry for me. So they would bail out of his line and come get a book from me and then go take their place in line.
Who did you read growing up? Who inspired you?
Richler was huge for me, and it was more university era. But when I started reading novels in university, that was the first time the light went on, and it was via Richler and via Joshua Then and Now and St. Urban's Horseman in particular, that I thought, wow, that would be something. To do this would be something. He was capturing his era, and he was capturing human relationships in a way that was just, it struck me as very complex and powerful.
But he was a writer who set his novels in place. In Montreal, you knew where you were. You were at Schweitz's Deli. This particular novel, your new one, is not really set. I kept thinking Chicago.
Good.
But was I supposed to?
Well, just because it's a success for me if you feel it rooted somewhere, and that the idea was to create an urban everywhere. This is it's the first time I've done this. This is an unnamed location.
Yes, I kept thinking, where the heck are we? Because in the book, there is, because of the hostage taking and the crisis, and it's a feeling that pervades a big city.
Absolutely.
And everybody's aware that downtown, was it downtown?
It's in the center of this kind of second downtown, I guess you could say.
There's little kids captured by some monster.
Yeah.
Don't know who. And there's all the cops and the special patrols, and the city is so aware. It's a feeling.
It's supposed to be scary in that aspect of it, but it's also supposed to be, I'm going for sort of the highest plausibility and connect with readers that I can, and there is a risk in placing it in Pittsburgh or placing it in Minneapolis or Winnipeg or Toronto, because it sort of specifies as if to say this is an event that organically came to life in that city. Maybe you let people off the hook if you do that. And I think this is, we live in a more placeless world than Richler lived, and we are more connected, and cities are much more similar, I think, than they used to be in the West. And as a result, I think we can say that these are events that belong to all of us, and I really wanted that to come across.
It did. Well, something that's very real in here is what people do when they get together in a crisis, a 9/11, a riot in Egypt, in a town square, how ordinary people change. They might start looting.
Yeah. We are
burning cars.
Yeah, we're copying creatures by like neuroarchitecture. This is how the human being has evolved, is that we are highly mimetic, and as a result, you can see good social behaviors that are highly contagious. You can see a spirit of democracy sweep through a population, and a commitment to it catch from person to person. You can also see violence go from person to person, and you can see behavior like looting. That's quite common. There was a great YouTube clip that I came across. It was a guy following two middle-class young women down the street in an Eastern European city. I forget where this took place, and he was calling at them. They were looting. They were taking stuff out of. He was saying, "Aren't you really proud of yourself? Don't you feel really good about what you're doing?" Being sarcastic, of course.
Right.
They were completely unaware. They looked at him like he was out of his mind. Like, what's he following us around for?
Well, a hockey riot. Somebody smashes all the windows in Robinson Street, and you're walking by, and there's a Rolex.
Yeah.
And somehow you forget all of your. I don't mean I would, of course.
Yes.
But people do that. They think, well, there's a Rolex, and the riot's in full flight, and if I don't take it, someone else will.
Well, and arguably a whole lot of alcohol also makes you more susceptible to these effects. So.
I hear it tell, but in this book, it wasn't about alcohol, but it was certainly about a strange dynamic. Do you have to be smart to figure this out?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this is intended to be a thrilling storyline that will have you thinking at the end of it. I mean, it's not a swing in the hammock, this book. You're going to be scared at parts of it, but you're going to be, I hope, sort of surprised in a really positive way by the ending in particular.
And that's the best part, because all through the book, you wonder, who is the guy?
Who's putting up those boxes?
If it is a guy.
Yeah.
Who's putting up the boxes, and who is the person who's taking these children hostage, and why? And how the heck is he linked to the journalist? And why does he want that journalist? And what does this beautiful Olympian have to do with all of it? You see?
Did you feel satisfied at the end?
I did.
Good.
I did, and I've always said that I want a book to linger with me. After I put it down, I wanted, when I'm sitting in traffic, to go back to it, to take me away. And you've done that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Blue Light Project itself, when it's unveiled, is, without saying too much, I think it's what we all want, we all hope is still left burning in us, is the possibility to do this kind of thing. It's an act, it's a selfless act of hope on the part of an artist. Some people might say it's idealistic to believe that still exists, but I think we need those moments. We need those moments of believing that somebody has given something away just for its positive effect.
And we need people in our society who have a passion to say, if you paid me nothing, I would do this.
I have to do it.
I have to do it. And no matter what, it's a very, very cool concept. What's next after the Blue Light Project?
Well, I'm diving into a series of fascinating magazine pieces that will keep me very busy through the summer. I'm going to Nunavut in a few weeks, and I'm really excited about that. And going to the Middle East in May, which should be interesting.
To write about?
I'm actually writing a story about falconry, and the destination involves going into the Middle East, where they're very adept at that form of hunting.
Falconry, birds of prey.
Yes.
Nothing like studying a bird of prey.
I've
I have
never
a book
been
in
up
my
close.
office. You haven't?
No, no.
Oh, I have. I've tagged red-tailed hawks. I'll tell you all about it.
Okay.
And then everybody must read Vancouver Magazine, your story about the Iranian and the Iraqi.
Blood Brothers, yeah.
Blood Brothers.
I feel like I didn't have to do anything except listen to these two gentlemen. But yeah, a young Iranian soldier during the Iran-Iraq conflict met an Iraqi in combat and saved his life against orders. And 20 years later, that Iranian washed up on the shores of Vancouver, incredibly, in a very depressed and suicidal state, and seeking counseling at the Vancouver Association for Survivors of Torture. He was sitting in the waiting room, and the Iraqi walked in.
It's uncanny. That was what, 1984? Iran-Iraq War, something.
The incident.
Where are we? The battlefield story.
Khorramshahr happened in '82, which is when they met, and they met again in 2000. And yeah, 2000.
In a garage or in a mechanical garage or something?
No, they met at the Vancouver Association for Survivors.
Okay, right. Yeah, but one of them's a mechanic.
And now Zahed, the Iranian, Zahed Haftlang, is a mechanic in North Vancouver, and Naja Aboud, the Iraqi, is running a moving company in Richmond.
It's a movie.
It should be.
Think?
I agree. I still get goosebumps telling the story. It's their story. And so I just felt I felt incredibly lucky that Gary Ross, the editor of Vancouver Magazine, directed me to it, and I just sat there and listened.
There's a World War I story about two soldiers, a German and I think a Canadian or an American. I'm not sure, and they meet. They're supposed to kill each other, and somehow a human eye contact thing interferes in the back of two planes, fighting planes, and they don't pull the trigger. The one guy, the German, doesn't pull the trigger, and they meet like 30 years later.
You know what I think is really interesting about coming on that story after this book was written is that Blue Light Project is, in parts of it, very much about the contagious nature of violence. both the two men you're describing and the Iranian, the Iraqi that I was lucky enough to meet, both of them came to that moment when they were instructed to offer reciprocal violence, to copy. It was important that they be as violent as the opponent, and they both, in that moment, rejected it. And that's the only way the Gordian knot of conflict is cut, is when two people make that decision.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you. Timothy Taylor, new book, 2 weeks out, The Blue Light Project.